right, if we can grab our seats so we can get started. We'll call this May 1st meeting.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Call this May 1st meeting to order. Begin by roll call. Andrew.
Here.
Eswar.
Here.
Sunita does not appear to be here yet. So David Kwan's not coming, right? We know that. He's traveling. And Howard.
Present.
Dick.
Yes.
David Woosley.
Here.
Gretchen.
Here.
And I, Frank Avado, am here. I do not believe we have any sunshine to wave, and our first item is closed session. Okay, just let the record show that Sunita has joined us. So we have no orders of the day, nothing to wave in sunshine.
Do we need to report out from closed session?
There's no
No
reportable
report out.
action.
Thank you. So we just need approval of the consent calendar. I have a motion from Dick,
Second by Gardner.
second by Gardner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to investments.
Good morning. So we have performance estimates that Laura shared fiscal year to date, which seem surprisingly strong. So she's going to send me the backup on that, but I will share what I have. Fiscal year to date through 2 days ago, pension was up 4.2% and healthcare trust was up 4.5%. I would have expected lower numbers, but we will double check those numbers. We just have the one item today, which is pacing plan, which requires the board's approval. And so unless there are any questions for me, I'm happy to invite Dinesh to present the pacing plan.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So this morning, we're going to be presenting the annual private markets pacing plan, and this was presented at the investment committee last month, and it was unanimously approved. So the purpose of this pacing plan is to show how we can get to the board-approved strategic asset allocation targets for each of the 5 private market sub-asset classes. And the reason that we have to do this for private markets is because these are illiquid investments where the fund managers control the timing of cash flows, where they make investments and call our capital and then realize those investments and distribute the capital back to us. So there is some level of uncertainty, and the consultants work on modeling out the expectations of how our existing investments as well as expected future investments can get us to our targets over time. So the goal today is to show you where we are in terms of our allocations, what we've done over the last fiscal year, and get approval for the upcoming fiscal year pacing plan. All of the modeling that's been done is by our consultants, so Neuberger Berman for the buyout asset class, Makita Investment Group for the other private asset classes, and we're going to be showing projections for the next 10 years, although this is revisited on an annual basis because there are changes that happen. This page has a summary of what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to move forward to the next slide, which puts it into context. So if you look at the far right column at the lower right, we've deployed or expected to deploy 115% of the current year's pacing plan. The pacing plan is intended to be a guide, so it's not prescriptive that we must commit 100% on an annual basis. There's some years we're going to commit more, some years that will commit less, but the objective is to have vintage year diversification. A few things to point out here. Private debt is the highest allocation at 140% of the pacing plan. The primary reason for this is that 2 of our private debt funds had actually fully realized and liquidated their investments even before the market volatility, so they reached their return objectives, returned the capital back to us, and gave us the opportunity to redeploy that capital into new investments. The second observation here is on growth real estate, where there's been a 2-year pause that we've taken in real estate, and currently after the interest rate repricing, we're starting to see new opportunities emerge, fundraising also improving for certain types of funds, so we expect to fully deploy the pacing plan in this fiscal year. This page shows where our allocations stand relative to the policy targets. So currently we're at 23.2%, 4.3% below the board-approved 27.5% target. And this is a new chart that we added this year to show how the board's strategic asset allocation targets have changed over time, which is in the green bar. And the blue bars are where our actual allocations are as of each fiscal year end. And what you'll see is that the board has generally been increasing the private markets target allocation, and our actual allocations have been moving closer and closer to those. There was a dip in 2021 where we had a secondary sale in the private equity asset class, where we sold about 1.5% of plan assets. And this page shows somewhat of a report card of where we stand relative to where we thought we would be in the prior year's pacing plan. So we're about 1% above where we thought we would be, and the main reason for that is coming from the buyout asset class, where there's been a slowdown of realizations or distributions coming back from existing managers and existing investments. This is something that's common throughout the industry and brought us 1% higher than we were. The other 4 private asset classes are actually very close to where we had modeled. This next page starts the building blocks of how we model the upcoming pacing plan. So to do so, we start with the 10-year net asset value forecast for the overall plan. The way we do this is take our existing market value and layer on the expected return of the plan, as well as the actuarial contributions and distributions coming from the plan. And the difference is actually very minor, 2% higher than where we had expected as of the previous fiscal year. And another new slide that we added is on liquidity management. This has been a, I think, hot topic of how private investments have taken longer to make realizations, and plans that are over allocated have to, in some cases, sell investments to make capital calls. So for us, based on the consultant modeling, all of the upcoming fiscal years are expected to have positive net cash flows, where the distributions from existing investments are expected to be greater than the capital calls, and those get larger over time. And putting it all together into a visualization, this shows the upcoming 10 years, where the dark bars show where we expect to be for each of the 5 private asset classes. The under allocation is in orange, which is where we use the proxy. And the light shading next to each year is where we should be if we were to be exactly at target over time. And because the plan is expected to increase in value, those bars end up getting larger and larger in terms of dollar values. And over the upcoming years, we get closer to the targets. And the numbers behind this are shown on this page, where what we're looking for approval for today is highlighted in yellow, which is very similar to the previous year's pacing plan, for a total of $375 million. And another new item that we added at the bottom of the page is that based on the investment policy statement and the expected investment implementation procedures, there's a limitation of how much we could commit in any particular fiscal year of 150% of the pacing plan plus any prior under commitments. And we're showing those dollar amounts of the theoretical maximum that we could commit in a particular fiscal year. So theoretically, it could be as high as $563 million across private markets if we were to reach that 1.5 times limit. There's no expected cumulative catch-up, and it's unlikely that we would be committing this much, but just so that you know that this is the maximum that we could be. And that is the end of the presentation. So we're seeking approval on the highlighted amounts and happy to answer any questions.
I'll move a motion to approve.
I have 2 quick questions. So if you reach the 563 million, you'll still be within the overall private equity, private market allocation, SAA?
So the SAA is a percentage of plan assets. This is purely commitment based, so it's uncertain if these commitments are in funds that have not made investments yet. They wouldn't necessarily directly get there. What it would likely do if we were to overcommit is that future years of commitments would be lower in future pacing plans. So that's why we do it each year, so that it can be adjusted for any years we go over or under to make those adjustments.
And another question, I didn't quite understand what you said about the 2 funds that paid off early, and why would that affect the pacing plan? I didn't quite understand.
So it doesn't, well, it changes our expectation for future commitments because we realize money faster than we expected. So if I go back to this private debt page, so in the prior pacing plan, we expected to be at $250 million of net asset value right here. but we actually ended up being at 237 million, so 13 million lower. So what this would do is, because that money came back sooner than was expected, and in these cases, roughly 5 years sooner than those investments were expected to pay off, that meant that we could redeploy that capital. We have the 150% limit, and we use that as our justification, that we thought that it's a good time so that we had the right investment opportunity. We had this reason where we're underallocated. We want to get closer to target instead of, in future years, making larger commitments, keep at the same investment size, but just do one extra commitment in the current year.
Thanks. Nothing else.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion from Eshwar and a second from Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, move on. Thank you. And we have nothing under old business, so we will go to new business, an oral update from our CEO.
Morning, everyone. I'm pleased to share that excluding the internal audit position that we are planning to eliminate as part of this year's budget process, that ORS is now fully staffed. It's been a long time since the organization was at full strength. Given the city's current vacancy rate of around 10%, this is a significant milestone for ORS. While we've only been fully staffed for a few weeks, I want to take a moment to recognize the achievement while we're still on top and celebrate the small wins. First, I want to thank the staff across the department. Every vacancy means that someone else or everyone else had to step up, and they did. I felt the weight of those vacancies when I first did my one-on-ones with the staff as we were emerging from a higher than normal turnover rate. The staff's commitment to our members is deep, and they keep things moving. I'm still new, so I won't claim credit for this achievement, but I do want to recognize and thank our senior management team and the supervisors for their focus on recruiting and creating a workplace culture that has led to minimal turnover since I've been here. This leadership has made ORS a place where people want to come and want to stay, and I think that was worth noting. On to business. Eligible police and fire retirees receive their annual Medicaid Part B reimbursement letter in February. Information was due to ORS to show that their enrollment was due by April 1st. The staff received over 1,000 forms. Reimbursement for this benefit started in February. Staff has processed approximately 870 so far and expect to have reimbursements paid by June. As a reminder, it's the time of year where the trustee waiver of recourse fees are due. Please provide payment to ORS accounting by May 31st. You can leave that with the admin team, and we can make sure that it gets to accounting. Just as a reminder, this coverage is fiduciary insurance for the trustees. This coverage requires payment of $75 payable to the City of San Jose Police and Fire Department Retirement Plan and is required by May 31st. Please note that the payment from each trustee must be from his or her personal account and cannot be paid or reimbursed by any other person or organization. We are in the final stages of all of our major procurements with the last set of approvals on the agenda today. We have started to engage in contract negotiations with most of the consultants. ORS has begun working with building management on the build-out of our new Suite 560 and following the ORS lease renewal. We're expecting that construction will be complete in July, and we hope to be able to move in shortly thereafter. Quarterly retirement workshops, which are held via Zoom. Members can register on our website. The next police and fire retirement workshop is May 22nd at 1 p.m. Just as a reminder, these retirement workshops are for Tier 1 or Tier 2 members who are within 1 or 2 years of retirement. The workshop is approximately 2 hours and covers retirement benefits and a variety of other topics. For those of you who were contacted today, you know that we're in the process of replacing trustee iPads, and we're going to be replacing iPads, older iPads, and enrolling all iPads in our mobile device management system. First round of deployments will start today, and there'll be another round later in the summer. We had our department all-staff meeting this past Tuesday, where we discussed current city COVID protocols, the city's on-site schedule moving from 3 days to 4 days per week, ORS budget, among a few other topics. And then just a reminder that the offices will be closed on Monday, May 26th for Memorial Day. With that, I'll take any questions.
Of course, you finished while my mouth's full.
Yeah, perfect timing on my part.
Councilmember Casey, any updates for the board?
Just one, in terms of the budget process, the projected shortfall has been adjusted. Instead of $45 million, it's down to $35 million. So some positive news there. Otherwise, no other updates.
Good to hear, thank you. Okay, we're going to item 4C, discussion on board's designation of 1737 North First Street, Suite 580, or ORS's boardroom for the 2026 regular standing and standing board and committee meetings. So I'll give a little just kind of background. When I first started getting interest in the retirement board, the meetings, and I'm sure Dick can attest to this, the meetings were at retirement services. Somewhere along the line, they did get moved. Over the course of the last year and a half, there's been a few things that I've noticed, a few things that I found out. One, we're paying for a large boardroom that's getting used, 12, 15 times a year? The convenience of coming to First Street, ORS, as opposed to coming here, Santa Clara actually adds 5 more minutes on my commute coming south to here with the buses and the pedestrians and everything else. I've also realized that our consultants come into San Jose Airport and ORS is probably within walking distance of some of those hotels. So I think it would be a lot more convenient for our consultants. I found out staff brings a lot of this equipment and stores chairs here. They gotta bring the coffee, the water, not to mention all their equipment and themselves. And then I start counting the amount of staff from ORS that are here, and typically 8 to 12 people are all coming here. For the trustees, we have issues with the parking garage sometimes in our validations. So you either pay for it on your own, or you gotta come back up and get it revalidated. When you go to the bathroom, you need someone's card key. These are a lot of just inconvenient issues that I've found that just make it logical for us to move back to ORS. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chair? You said everything that I would be thinking, so I appreciate it.
Anyone else?
John, can you talk a little bit about the resources that are here versus not at ORS that we would want to potentially recreate or not, just so we have the full picture?
Sure. I guess what I would say is talking with staff, senior staff that have been here longer than me, which is everybody. And then also working with Reed Smith, just to understand what I'd like to understand where are the bounds? What are the minimum requirements? And I think the thing in short, there's no policy or legal requirement to have the board meetings here. The meeting code clearly states that the boards set the meeting time and location. They only need to be within the legal bounds of San Jose. There is no requirement to broadcast or allow remote attendance. We allow our trustees to remote attend if they meet the requirements of the Brown Act. If we allow trustees to attend remotely, then we must allow the public to view remotely, not necessarily participate, although we do allow them to participate. minimum technical requirements is that we must record, we must create an audio recording of every meeting and store it for 2 years. And that recording needs to be made available upon a public information request to the board. What you don't see here in this room is that there's actually a city broadcast staff that's happening behind the scenes here. So there's 2 or 3 individuals. They actually are here setting up the microphones before we get here. Unfortunately for the public, they're putting my face up on the in a Zoom, but you can see that they're also putting the titles underneath the video, either with the person's name or the agenda. When we have meetings back in our office, so we already meet all the technical requirements, the minimum technical requirements when we hold a meeting in our office. In our office, it's a little bit different because we don't have any broadcast personnel that are constructing the video as you see here. We have a technology owl camera that spins around. It gives us a bird's eye, a fisheye view of the boardroom, and then focuses on whoever's talking based on sound. So it tries to zoom in on the area of the room where the sound is coming from. But it meets all the technical requirements. In both places, we broadcast to Zoom. Our staff actually does that. But when we're here, they also broadcast to Civic Center TV live, or cablecast. I was educated. It's a cablecast, not a broadcast. And it also goes out over YouTube. When we do it in our office, it's only going out over Zoom, and then we save the recording through Zoom, and then we provide that to the city to store it in the same locations that it would store otherwise. So the question of what resources do we need, I mean, the answer could be no additional resources. Up to, if we wanted to create similar broadcast quality, we'd have to figure out what those implemental requirements are, and then we could go back and do some costing analysis.
And I think we've talked on the short goal, maybe upgraded the mic system, which is nothing too.
We discussed that before. You suggested the agenda item. In the office, the mics are wired. We don't have as many, and they're old technology. So they didn't make the budget cut this year, but they are on the list of items that we're looking to upgrade.
And
our boardroom can accommodate members of the public as well.
Sure.
So we meet all those requirements.
absolutely. With regard to the quality of the video, do we have any estimates on how many, in particular participants, but how many people in general will watch the live stream that comes from City Hall?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer to that question. I'll look to the admin staff to talk about Zoom. On average, how many people do we have logged into our Zoom? I mean, I guess that wouldn't change though, right? That piece wouldn't change. The piece that could change would be the number of YouTube watchers live, as well as, I'm not sure we would be able to know how many people are watching it on the Civic TV. But YouTube, maybe we could get some stats on that.
Yeah, I think my question is really sort of, and we won't have an answer here, but getting to the 4 plan participants, making sure that their experience with interacting with the board meeting, even if it's just watching, isn't degraded.
Right.
I think one of the other advantages, currently we have to have all these staff members here in case we have a question, whereas at ORS, we could simply send a text message, they walk a floor, and they're there. So they continue to be efficient in their work. Another personal pet peeve of mine, although I understand why, is Dave and I have found that you can't get into this building until 10 to 15 minutes before the meeting starts. And I'd really like to be here without texting someone to open the door for me. I'd really like to be here a little earlier on occasion. So just a lot of logistical issues that just makes, I think, our work here more difficult.
Yeah, I know for me, the last 2 times I parked downstairs, the parking validation machine that was up here didn't work. So I go, it says that it works, like gives it the little code on the top that looks like it works. Go down to my car, drive over to the gate won't accept the card, drive back, park, come up, wait 5 or 10 minutes for someone to validate, and that issue goes away completely at the other building because parking is in the parking lot with no special access.
And we have plenty of parking. And I'll let it out just because this is another logistic. There's on occasion times where this room is not available to us. So we know there's not a problem with us having it there. And in the event, like we are aware of, there may be a protest here today, which could disrupt this meeting potentially. Our understanding is it's in the afternoon, so we should be okay. But I could envision people blocking a parking garage, not being able to get out, some of these other things. We are off-site and not going to be a targeted area. Any other questions? Well, this is a discussion. I think this would just be a direction to staff to, as of fiscal year 26, just report a new location. And I think if anybody else has a question or comment, they're more than free to get a hold of me. Okay.
So we'll bring as part of the discussion and action for setting the schedule for calendar year 26, we will include ORS as the primary location.
Yes.
Fiscal year.
Sorry.
Fiscal, yeah.
Fiscal year 26 starts in July. We would be doing this in August for calendar year 26.
Okay. We don't have a July meeting, do we?
No. Sorry, in August.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you wanted to do something not waiting until January of next year, we could take that action at the next board meeting as well. But we
Maybe I misunderstood. The way you presented, I thought you were saying we'd start doing it in January.
we start doing it in January.
I propose we start doing it in August.
Second.
Oh, I'm good with that.
But we can't take an action on that today.
No, we can't.
If you, as a proposed agenda item for the next board meeting, we could bring that back to the next board meeting if that's what the board would
The
prefer.
chair's consensus to put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
for
okay.
discussion and action.
Everybody okay with that?
Do we need to put on the agenda as well any discussion about costs associated with mic upgrades and video upgrades, or should we separate those as two things?
Well, I think in the immediate time, it would be looking into mic upgrades, which fall well below John's authorized amount to spend on something.
I think the real question is, if the board gives me direction to say that we would want to approach the production quality that is done here at ORS, I can go and do that and bring that back to the boards. If you want to wait until until that is done before the meetings, or do you want to move the meetings because we meet the minimum requirements, and then we will upgrade that as we can move forward? Just as any sort of audio video upgrades is not included in the proposed budget that we reviewed at last month. So we'll also have to take a look at that in the context of where we are in this year's budget as well, because there could be we might have some room in a few areas to do some of that work now before July 1st, or have it impact next fiscal year.
Do you have a preference?
If we have room in the budget this year, I would love to use the excess there, if we
I
could.
would suggest a two-staged effort. First one being the mics.
Okay.
Just making sure we have enough mics and the most efficient, clear. And then looking into and coming up with a proposal to upgrade the video system, obviously working with the city techs as to how we could make it either YouTube Live or whatever the other avenue is.
I had a brief discussion with one of the supervisors here last month about that, and there's still some details we would need to flesh out, but it would require a few remote cameras, no different than what you see here, maybe an on-site technician for our board meetings, and then they would send the constructed feed back to here, and then we could meet all the same the same requirements. But I believe it would be just a one-time technology
Upgrade.
upgrade. But I can work through those details.
One quick question. Have we had any feedback on meetings at ORS from anybody from the outside? Saying, oh, I couldn't see anybody, or I couldn't do this, or did it matter?
I-
Did anybody know?
I have not heard any.
Staff? He's always looking at me while I'm chewing.
Okay, so just so I understand my direction, we're gonna look at the mic upgrades. That's something we had on our longer horizon IT upgrade path anyway. Put together a proposal that I can bring back for discussion and action, or discussion if it's within my authority with the boards, just so that you can understand what the cost of that move is. And then in August, or potentially in next month, we could decide to move it for August. Right, so next month's stream, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay, discussion and action authorizing the CEO to negotiate and execute a sixth amendment to the agreement with Marty Boyer Communications Advantage to extend the term of the agreement through June 30th, 2026, with a maximum total amount payable of $15,000 for the period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
So this is, we currently have an agreement with Marty Boyer Communications Advantage to, their main role is in the production of our quarterly newsletters. They help draft, author, edit all of the articles and content that you see. They also assist us in some other ways too, again, all around communication. This is a request for an extension for the contract. There was a thought that we would go out for competitive procurement for this work, along with there's a second contract for social media communications, which is separate from Marty Boyer but much smaller in overall costs. That would be within my delegation of authority. My proposal is that we extend these for one more year. This allows us to go through our strategic planning process that I'm hoping that we will do in the fall of this year. Typically, one of the pillars of a pension fund strategic plan is around stakeholder communications. And my thought is, I don't want to put out I don't want to invest the time and energy in a procurement process that potentially coming out of the strategic plan could be significantly different. I don't know if it will be, but it could be. And so the thought is, let's extend this for 1 year, and then next year on the other side of the strategic planning process, we'll work through what our communication needs are, and we can better define how and if that impacts any staffing requests and or consulting services.
Hey, John, isn't this within your delegated authority?
So although it's 15,000, the total contract is more than 50,000. So this is just 15,000 for the 1 year. The wording on this contract is a little bit different than what we've seen in some of the other contracts. So it's year by year, and so that's why you're only seeing the 15. But the total amount, the total contract amount is over 50, so it's greater than my authority.
Just a thought, during the strategic planning exercise, will we review your delegated authority? Because, sometimes very small amounts come in front of us.
I would love that.
Mr. Chair, there's a motion to approve the CEO take care of it.
And a motion
Second.
from Dick,
Second.
second from Gretchen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Discussion and action on amendment to MOU between board and city for use of actuary to review city bond disclosure documents.
So just some quick background on this. The city, when they put out any sort of bonds, they need to disclose their pension liabilities. My understanding is back in 2016, the boards created an MOU with the city to do 2 specific bond offering reviews, and this is where they bring in Chiron to review the pension liability disclosures. We did an amendment in 2018 and 22, basically keeping the terms the same and only revising the bonds that that are being offered. And so the proposed is another MOU amendment between us and the city that would allow allow them to procure Chiron services to review the bonds, and the city would pay Chiron directly.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion
Second.
from Dick, second from Gretchen.
I had a question, maybe I'm behind here.
Go ahead.
The city is planning on doing a bond offering?
I believe they're planning to do 2 bond offerings, not related to pensions.
Yeah, but this is, it's public knowledge and it's going to happen? Is that the idea?
I don't know the terms of
Okay.
what's public and what's not, but I know this is part of the process to get the bonds through the process.
Okay, so this is not just we may do it later. It's pretty much things are in motion? Okay. No,
It's really the Department of Finance within the city controls that. To say that it's quote unquote happening, it may not get approved by city council to go to bond, but part of the process to get to that approval is to create these attachments that disclose all their pension liability.
Yeah, this is not pension obligation bonds. This is a bond associated, something the city wants to do, but has to disclose what their obligations are.
It's what I have written here is a lease revenue bond and a general obligation bond. So both to happen proposed to happen July and August of this year.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Why do they need our approval to use Chiron service?
They're using our contract with Chiron, and so they become a party to it, so.
Yeah. They're basically, we already have all our actuaries done, so they just need permission to consult with them.
I have a couple of questions. One is, it says that there's been a MOU with the city for a while. Are there other such MOUs that, again, for the strategic planning process and education, we can understand? Because, I've been on the board for a bit. I'm not aware of the other
Sure.
MOUs.
It's a good question. I wasn't aware that there was an MOU prior to going through this process. So let me talk with, I'll talk with staff and I'll talk with Reed Smith to see if we can generate a list of what the MOUs are. They would have been on board agendas in the past, but
Yeah.
see if we can create a consolidated list, at least in the recent history.
Yeah, because, it's sort of, some of us have been around, but it hasn't come up in the past. Nothing wrong with it, but
Sure.
it'd be good to educate ourselves. The second is, I did notice the language on page 2. Maybe this is a question for the attorneys. It talks about, this is page 2 of the non-red line of the actual document.
Okay.
It says that the information is derived in part from, among other sources, public information provided by the plan and its independent accountants, actuaries, and investment advisors. So does Chiron have information that is not public? That there needs to be a firewall between their contract with us and their contract with the city? I don't know if, which attorney would answer this, but I noticed this language in this.
Right.
You're referring to the indented paragraph in paragraph
Yeah.
3?
That's just right there.
So that's a great question. We can look into that. One thing that I will note is that in order to expedite this process, as requested by the city, we did not make any changes to this MOU. This is the MOU that was in effect before these changes, with the exception of the red lines. So that paragraph that you're referring to has been in this MOU before.
Because there's I don't know if Chiron has any non-public information, I think.
So, part of the evaluation process is that we need to deliver a population census of all of our members' data. I think what this is saying is that that's the data that's not being used, and they're only using the results of that data, which is all of the documents that would have come through a process here at the board. So the valuations, the ACFRs, the data that's already publicly available.
So the output.
Correct.
The input
Discount
is
rates,
probably-
unfunded liabilities, I would
Correct.
assume it'd be all that you're talking about.
So the input is probably non-public, and
Correct.
the output is public.
That's right. And those are the reports that have come through the boards for review, approval, even your assumptions. The assumptions are an input to the process, but it's also part of the resulting public document.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I would say that perhaps I'm a little bit more sensitive, having been in sort of banking for so many years between, firewalls, and something we might want to think about as a procedure or a process where Chiron doesn't
Okay.
inadvertently
Okay.
step a firewall.
Is that something that would prevent the vote on this today,
I
or?
don't think so, no.
Okay. Just for
I mean, not from
future,
my
when we're, obviously, this is a regular occurrence, maybe as part of the next MOU or the next request for review during a bond process, that's something we could request that, or investigate with Chiron, whether or not it's something that would add value in the process and protection.
And it may be as simple as asking what they disclose to the city outside of what we would be posting at the back table that they're putting up on a presentation.
Yeah, just a procedure that the information is firewalled from the city, I guess. That's all. I don't think it affects this,
Right,
but
okay.
more a question for them as a follow-up, not necessarily for the next MOU, but when you talk to them next.
Sure, okay.
Any other discussion? I don't think we voted on this yet, did we?
No.
No, okay. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
To clarify, for the record, who was the motion and second?
It was Dick, and I believe the second was Gretchen.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to retirements, and we have none. We do have an early retirement for Samantha Huyen, Police Sergeant, Police Department, effective May 24th, 2025, 21.96 years of service. And then I'll just put these two together. We also have a deferred vested for Jose Izquierdo, Police Sergeant, Police Department, effective May 2nd, 2025, 29.79 years of service with reciprocity. I'll entertain a motion. And a motion from Dick,
Second.
and a second from Woosley. All those in favor? Opposed? Any words?
I thank them for their service, and I hope they have a long and joyful retirement.
Agreed. Number 6, death and survivorship notification. Notification of the death of John Ruiz, police officer, retired August 21st, 2010, died March 19, 2025. Survivorship benefits to Exarma Rusin, sorry about the name, spouse. We'll entertain a moment of silence. Okay. I did not know the individual. Did you?
I did not, but my condolences to the surviving spouse and their family, and thank him for his service.
Okay, we'll go to committee minutes, reports and recommendations. Investment Committee.
We've not had a meeting. I guess we have the minutes of the February 25th and the special IC on March 6th to receive and file.
Okay, we'll receive and file the minutes. We do have an item up here. Did we, it's receive and file the minutes on both of these items.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. 7.2, audit risk.
We haven't had a meeting since February. We have a joint audit committee on May 15th.
Okay, governance.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it looks like we're gonna meet in June 5th, and we'll be probably addressing some of these pending issues.
7.4, disability.
Yes, we'll meet on May 5th at 10 o'clock at the First Street headquarters, and there's our update, that's it, thank you.
JPC.
Again, no meeting. This last meeting was before our last board meeting, I think, so we discussed it.
Okay, so we have 7.6 legal services joint ad hoc. What do we have on this? This is on the tax, right, John?
So, this first item, B, is for tax counsel. The Legal Services Ad Hoc Committee asked the staff to perform the interviews for the proposed. We went through the process and made recommendation to the ad hoc committee that we continue to use Ice Miller as our tax counsel. It was a very, very close scoring between the two consultants who proposed, but the staff felt that staying with the incumbent outweighed any of the other, the closeness of the two scores, even though Ice Miller slightly scored better than the other.
Let's say, this is an action, so it's to
Yes.
accept the recommendation. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation. I got a motion from Dick,
Second.
a second from Sunita. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we have C, which is the recommendation from staff for investment counsel going to Hanson Bridget for the term of 6 years for an amount not to exceed $580,000 with 4 one-year options to extend.
Good morning. We received 6 responses to the RFP for investment counsel. 2 of the firms were advanced to the interview stage, the incumbent Hanson Bridget and Forster Garvey. Both are very qualified firms and scored very similarly. However, Hanson Bridget had slightly better score and lower fees. The staff recommended to the ad hoc committee, which they approved, to retain Hanson Bridget as investment counsel for the 2 plans.
Any questions?
Yeah, Ron, what was the reason for the failure of the first one, just out of curiosity?
That firm proposed only on securities litigation and did not propose services for any of the items we needed.
Oh, okay.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Got a motion from Andrew, second from Dick. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're on 7.7 actuarial services for ad hoc. This is David Quan's, so I don't know if there's someone who could speak to it.
I'm happy to give the overview. Very similar to the actuarial joint ad hoc committee authorized staff to go ahead and perform interviews and do the scoring. We interviewed the 4 remaining actuarial candidates for the actuarial audit service, and then made recommendation to the audit committee. The scores, we had two scores that were very close, the incumbent, which is Siegel, and Milliman. Milliman scored slightly higher. The staff, after reviewing the proposals and doing a quality interview, recommended Milliman to the ad hoc committee, changing to Milliman for our actuarial audit services.
Okay, do we have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Got a motion from Dick,
Second.
that second from Woosley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, 7.8.
If you'll just allow me, I just want to thank all the senior staff. We had a number of large procurements that have been going on since December, and it's the same senior staff that have been involved in reviewing, participating, organizing all of these different services. And this is this Milliman agenda item is really the last of the bulk of those. And I just want to thank them because it's a burden on top of their daily tasks that we ask them to do. And, you know, for those of you who are involved in, even in a small way, you understand the work that goes into these procurements, and they're so important for running the retirement fund. So I just want to thank the senior staff and for supporting that process.
Yeah, I must say that being on the committee was really helpful to have staff's perspective on the ones I participated in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. There was a lot of work in a short period of time on a lot of different items. So again, thanks. Okay, 7-8, Investment Governance Ad Hoc Committee. Kwan's not here, so
Yeah.
Aswar.
So we have made some progress. The investment consultants have presented their ideas in terms of changes. We continue. We had one meeting to discuss things. We have, further discussions going on. So we're not ready to present as yet.
So we still haven't come to resolution on this.
That's correct. Yes.
And what's holding it up?
I have a call with the investment consultants scheduled in a couple of weeks to discuss some of the, the different opinions, I guess, on this. David has been traveling. He did have some of his own concerns. So hopefully by the end of this month, I think we'll be closer to a resolution.
So maybe you can enlighten the board on the process of different opinions from, we're talking about the two investment firms, the committee?
The committee, yes.
Okay. It would be my recommendation that they present us with whatever they've come up with, and that this board would hear your, edits or adds or takeaways from it, so we can make a decision as a board?
That is the plan.
Okay.
That is
I
the
just
plan.
want to make sure that, because you having a discussion with them and creating a document takes us out of the loop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we already had one proposed agenda item. Any other proposed agenda items?
I was going to request that the staff send us a calendar invite for the strategic planning so we know when it is coming up.
So what we will do is we will adjust the September invite to include a longer day for the retreat. We have not yet onboarded the governance consultant. We'll be driving some of the strategic planning process. So as soon as we get contracted with them, depending on how quickly we can do that, one of the first things I want to do is set out what the strategic planning process will look like. It will include some individual one-on-ones with the consultants.
I just want to save the dates because we all live and breathe by our calendars.
Sure, 100%.
It's still the same day, right? It's still
The September meeting is not changing the date. It just expect a longer
Oh,
day,
okay.
and that day will be in the office.
All right.
But the strategic plan won't happen all in that one day. There'll be work that needs to be done both before and after that. But my point is, until we get the governance consultant onboarded, I don't have anything. But as soon as we do, we absolutely know that we have to work with each of you to get you on your schedules, and we'll do that as soon as we can.
There's nothing else for adjourn. Record time.
This is a record.
Recording stopped.